What's up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to the Sheer Brilliance Podcast. I am your host, Sheer. You already know, we're first to many and second to no one when it comes to covering the news, the moves, and the who's who regarding our New York Knicks. For those of you who are returning for another video, my SB community, welcome back. Let's go, baby. Let's talk about our New York Knicks. If you're here for the first time, or you're the ops, I see you. I see you in the comment section. And guess what? You rocking with the best, baby. Boy, if you don't stop, let's go. Do me a favor, like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment, as this content is for you and anyone else who's a fan of basketball. Friend or foe, we want all the smoke. And the smoke is exactly what we're covering today, courtesy of the New York Knicks front office and their plan for building a championship contender, NBA Jam style. That's right, you heard me, NBA Jam. Now, I might lose a few of you who weren't even born or even thought of in 1993. But everyone else, y'all remember that NBA video game, right? It came out in about 1993. I happened to be a sophomore in high school at that time. But I remember how crazy that year was. Run DMC was down with the King. R. Kelly had a different public announcement, and the NBA had just dropped a new video game that all of my friends were talking about. It's called NBA Jam. He's on fire. Kaboom. Boom shakalaka from downtown. Y'all remember all of those. And then you could play with your team's favorite player and even give them like big heads. Wait a second. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't even be trying to play me. Boy, if you don't stop. What I'm saying is that the Knicks have positioned themselves to be able to pursue, acquire, and or develop the necessary pieces to be a contending championship team. At this very moment, the New York Knicks even have an adequate supporting cast. Similar to what we've seen over the past 20 years on championship teams. We have that. We have players who can hit a key three. We have a player who can come up big with a big-time block or rebound. We have players who can provide some scoring punch off of the bench and get the crowd going. We have all of that at this very moment. Now, depending on who we have to move in order to get the final pieces to a championship contending puzzle, that'll determine if those players are still on our team as a good supporting cast. But we have it right now. So the key question becomes, do we or will we have the key starting components to compete for a championship? This begs the question, what is needed to be considered a championship team? Now, into my NBA Jam theory. After having a random conversation with my cousin about NBA Jam, stop the tape. If you're a fan of battle rap, hip-hop drama, or comedy, follow my cousin's channel, @SurrealMookie, for the best battle rap coverage and commentary on YouTube. Promise you won't regret it. It's on YouTube. Back to the channel. So we were reminiscing about NBA Jam, and he made me realize that NBA Jam had cracked the code. If my memory served correctly, you had about 3 or 4 players from each team that you could choose from. I remember when I played with the Knicks, I was choosing, it was either Patrick and Starks if I needed defense and shooting, or it was Patrick and Oak if I needed Oak's rebounding and Patrick's offense. But it was usually the top 3 players per team and what they excelled at to determine whether or not you won or lost a matchup. And that's like today's NBA. If I look at today's NBA through the lens of NBA Jam's game, past championship teams or even recent championship teams, the contenders today meet that NBA criteria. One of the players must be an NBA god, have that status, or be that superstar. One of the 3 players has to either be an all-star, have that role player status, and then the last player needs to bring that defensive impact, that dog status, that support. So if we're looking at the Bucks, you had Giannis, who was at god status. You had Middleton, who was the all-star. Portis was the X factor. We had LeBron's Lakers. He was the god. Anthony Davis, the all-star. Howard was the X factor. His Cavaliers, he was the god. Kyrie was the all-star. Love was the X factor. We're looking at the Warriors. It's Steph, who's the god. Clay, who's the all-star. Draymond was the X factor. Toronto, it was Kawhi. And then you had Lowry and Siakam. Current day, You could even look at Brooklyn and let KD be the god, Kyrie be the puny god, and Ben Simmons be the X factor. But if we're looking at the Knicks as currently constituted, our team is to be determined when it comes to impact winning in this league. Julius Randle's TBD, all right? Will he even be here? Will he return to form? What will his role be if he comes back? But if I'm looking at our roster, out of all the players, he would be the one player that I will put to represent us on that NBA game. He would be the number 3 spot, all right? He would be that kind of X factor. If he shows up right, he would be important, okay? Now, this is where I stand when it comes down to the Donovan Mitchell argument. And should we pursue or shouldn't we pursue him? I say we should pursue him. Donovan Mitchell would fit perfectly in our number 2 spot as that all-star role player needed on a championship contending team. All right? Needless to say, if the Knicks are able to secure Donovan Mitchell, they would absolutely have secured the second of the 3 Infinity Stones. That's assuming that we're committing to Julius and he's committed to us. Donovan Mitchell is a bad man. Shout out to Stephen A. Smith. I just threw up in my mouth saying that, though. All right? He's clearly one of the top 20 best players in this league. He's not even in his prime yet, and that's difficult to come by. He's a dynamic, explosive offensive player. He's a high-level finisher, big shot ability, and a closer's mentality. He's also prolific from the mid-range, all right? He'd be a perfect complement to Julius or anyone on our team. But most of all, he's from New York, and he wants to be here. And this is something that you know the front office has been keenly aware of. He is a legitimate number 2. So that is the 2 spots that we have. That leaves us with the NBA God status spot open for the New York Knicks. Now, there is no one currently on the Knicks that can fill that spot. We already know that, all right? But in all actuality, all of the current NBA gods are entering their twilight years. And the budding ones either aren't in their primes as of yet, or it seems that they're secure with their current teams. Giannis, okay? So this is what I'm saying. If the front office in the next few years decide to follow the NBA Jam blueprint, they're probably planning on making changes to better fit what those top 3 spots look like for us. Who we get to fill that NBA God status? Would it be Giannis? He'd be perfect side by side with Mitchell, all right? Or would we go after Joel Embiid? How formidable would a Giannis, Mitchell, and a Randle, setup be? Or a Giannis, Mitchell, and Barrett? How formidable would Embiid, Mitchell, and Randle be? Or Embiid, Mitchell, and Barrett? I know those are distant dreams, but I can't stress enough that the above teams that I mentioned, the X factor player they had on their team, there was one of those players that come in, he was the heart and the soul of that championship run. Whether it was Draymond, whether it was Portis, whether it was Tristan. Julius fit that mold in his second year, but he looks nothing like it right now. So right now, we don't have anyone on the team who's revealed themselves to be that type of player. If any team needs that type of player, the New York Knicks team does. All right? That player can elicit a kaboom or boom shakalaka type of play like on NBA Jam. And those type of players, characteristics, the 3 important NBA Jam ingredients needed to be considered a legitimate contending team. But I think our front office is down for it. I think they're focused on bringing that type of player to New York City. So what do you think? Questions, comments, or concerns, please do me a favor. Leave them in the box below. Tell me, do I have a point? Am I reaching? What do you say? Until next time, keep in mind the same thing applies to our team that applies to our life. There's no struggle, there's no progress. Get the likes up. I'm trying for each of my videos to hit 100 likes per video. And do me a favor, subscribe so you can see more content like this coming. Knicks Nation, we're here. And we got next. Shibber's Podcast. I'm out. Peace.